Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dropped Frames. Did you get your pizza? And also, what episode?
No,
are
I
we
didn't.
on?
I called and canceled it. And I'm
What?
starving, and I'm whiny,
What?
and I'm angry, and
No
I'm
pizza.
hungry.
What'd they do?
Yeah,
Don't-
the whole point was skip lunch and order pizza, and then everything was going to be good. And I ordered it like 30 minutes earlier, just make sure it would be here. Cut to an hour and 25 minutes later, and I call them, and I'm like, "Where's my pizza?" And they're like,
Man.
"Oh, we're running late. It's about to leave the store. It's about to leave the store."
Don't you
No,
like?
no, it's not. Because I'm canceling.
Don't you fund
keep it.
that pizza store? You eat pizza more than I do. What's going on? You got to get them under
Dude,
control.
it's a travesty. I have no words. It's just it's a tragic situation.
You got to open up your own pizza store. Co's Pizza. It'd be
That would
great.
solve the problem.
It would solve
Yeah,
the problem. Yeah.
Did you whip out the "Don't you know who I am"? Because I would have.
You know, I was thinking about it. I ended up not at the end, but I almost did.
Okay.
I almost did.
All right. Co, what's the
know
episode?
who I am? I'm a huge celebrity in a part of the internet.
In a very
very
small
teeny tiny
section of
spot.
the world.
Yeah.
Yes, I am hangry, as people say these days. I am hangry. Today is 18/5/56.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Our guest today for the first half of the show is none other than Mr. Happy 1227. We're going to refer to him like that the entire time.
Oh,
He
you
only
gonna do the
prefers,
numbers?
he said before we started, I have to
Yeah.
be referred to as Mr. Happy 1227.
That's
So
not true at all. That's
If you
not
don't
even-
say the numbers, I'm going to leave the show.
I
without
think
saying
those
the
were the
numbers.
exact words out of his mouth, I believe.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
you weren't here.
Then he
You
went
were
on
waiting
to
for
say
pizza
that
the
he
whole time.
recommends
You would know.
Oh.
I was like, that's absolutely accurate.
100% accurate.
No, we
Oh,
have to.
God.
I think we should refer to him in Spanish like "Señor Happy, uno, dos, dos, siete."
Nice.
The origin of this name is actually Spanish
Really?
because it happened doing Spanish homework. So odd that you would do that. Yes, Señor Feliz Mono, which was a Mr. Happy Monkey, was something in my Spanish homework. I just took the monkey part off of it.
What? Is that?
Yeah.
Zeke, you like nodded like, oh, yes, I know that Happy Monkey. Like, what's going on here? What?
No. It wasn't. It was like how serendipitous, like that. I would
Oh,
mention. Like,
okay. I thought, okay, gotcha. I did not have the Spanish book with the happy monkey on it, unfortunately. I feel like I missed out.
Mr. Happy Monkey.
Oh, maybe I could have been Mr. Happy 1337. Why the 2? Why not even go for Mr. Happy Leet? What's up with the numbers
Birthday.
There were 1,226 other Mr. Happies, JP, and sometimes you just got to get in line.
here? Okay, all right.
I have a lot of those.
Yeah.
A lot of the numbers.
Oh,
No, yeah,
wait a
birthday.
minute. You had you're a Christmas baby. Ugh.
Almost. It was aiming for New Year's, but 10-pound baby ain't gonna make it till New Year's.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is like that's gotta.
No,
suck.
it was great actually because I played to my advantage. And I was like, yes, combine my gift and get me a better gift.
Oh, smart
Gaming the
No.
system even early on in life. I
Smart.
can respect that.
play. I like it. So yeah, we're gonna be talking mostly Final Fantasy here. Final Fantasy 14 at the start of the show. You've been playing a bunch of Dauntless recently. If we want to kind of start with that, you're deep in the
Yeah.
Dauntless scene. How's that
Yeah,
all
I've-
going?
I've played since Alpha, and it's come a long way, man. The cross-platform especially has been just something.
Yeah, really
They've got a
is.
lot of plans for the future and all these like interviews they've done since like E3, and I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, it won't matter for me for the next 4 weeks,
Right,
but,
sure.
you know, once things calm down a little bit,
Yeah,
between that and Monster Hunter, I'm going to be enjoying that genre for a while to come.
yeah. Did you play the Iceborne beta, by the way? I didn't check it out over the weekend. I don't know if it's still running on PS4.
No, I think the PC beta is this weekend for it, but
Why would they even?
no,
Okay.
yeah, I can't really play those for very long. Like I play those for like an hour just to like check out the new moves and maybe fight like one monster, but I'm there to grind.
Sure.
I can't grind anything in a beta, so
Yeah, that's true. I understand it. I
Yeah.
get it. Well, let's start with where you started your kind of streaming career. Typically, when we have a guest on for the first time, we kind of talk about how they came to be on Twitch. So, did you start with Final Fantasy? Is that where you kind of began your journey?
yeah, I tried things like League of Legends and Minecraft before that. I did a Sim City when that launched, and then they gave us Mass Effect for free because the launch of Sim City was a disaster. But that was
I'd
good.
forgotten about that.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Well, I went from streaming Sim City for 7 days, and I was like, let me just play a different game instead. So I never forgot that. And yeah, but I'd say starting with YouTube content for Final Fantasy 14. I started doing just like weekly videos when I was working a desk job in New York City. Internal tech support. If you've ever seen the IT crowd, me. That was my job, pretty much. And when I lost that job because Vodafone bought out the company and got rid of 2/3 of staff, I just started doing this. I didn't have another job, so I was doing Diablo 3 Real Money Auction House at the time and making YouTube videos for Final Fantasy 14.
How'd the
and it was
how'd the Real Auction House go? Did you make? I've never
made
heard
a lot
someone.
of money.
Okay, good. I've heard people say I tried to do it but didn't work out that well. I've never heard someone that was like, oh yeah, no, that shit was gangbusters. I made so much money from it.
I had a friend who got a parking ticket, and then we played Diablo 3 that night, and he got a drop, but he didn't have it set up to do the real money. So I sold the item for him to pay for his bill. He made like $180 off that ring.
What a weird
thing. Off a single ring.
Off a single ring. $250, I think, was the max you could do in the Real Money Auction House. So that was like...
Not bad.
What a weird thing.
So it was pretty good.
What a
weird time.
Yeah. What an odd
But it helped
thing
when I
that
didn't have a job. So it was
Sure.
A terrible idea, but it worked for me.
No, you got by. It makes sense. I understand it.
And then just as 14 was, gearing up for its relaunch with A Realm Reborn, I was just in at the right time, I guess. That's what I always say.
Right.
And just reporting on everything.
Did you play 1.0 at all? The first rendition? Were you into that whole world of shit?
Yeah, I skipped class in college on September 27th, 2010 to go buy my collector's edition.
Oh boy.
And then it took me 2 months to get to level 50. It was not a good time. And then I played intermittently, like throughout the various updates. I wouldn't say I played the whole time, but I played intermittently.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's not a time I look back on fondly.
No, it was
not at all.
It was a rough time. So you're one of those guys then that gets the buck off, right? Because you had a sub earlier, or did you not?
Yeah, no, I think it's $8.90. It's either $8.99 or $9.99 a month.
Oh, it's more than $1
for Legacy.
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
And you got your sick tattoo in game, right? That's the other benefit. Okay, cool.
And the chocobo with the sick tattoo.
Oh, I didn't know you got a chocobo with the sick tattoo as well. I feel
and a goobu. There's the goobu from the Sylphs.
Just now you're bragging. Now you're bragging. A goobu. You got a goobu as well. Jesus Christ. Jesus. It's too much.
A few other items too, but
Yeah. No, I understand how it is. And then when did that start? Final Fantasy's been out 6 years, so that's kind of been your main thing for the past 6 years. Have you divulged any other games, or just kind of focused on Final Fantasy?
Whenever there is something else that comes out that I want to dive into, I will. But I like to call Final Fantasy 14 my home game, and kind of Final Fantasy my home genre. Like I can always do anything Final Fantasy and kind of feel comfortable. Sometimes you want to stream a game that's like not the usual, and sometimes it can feel a little weird when everyone expects you to play one game. But with Final Fantasy as a franchise, or Square Enix kind of as a company, I can always spend a little bit of time on anything in there and feel okay at the very least.
Sure. Yeah. Where do you think? I mean, I've always kind of viewed Final Fantasy as this weird thing. Final Fantasy 14 rather is this weird thing on Twitch because I think it gets compared obviously to other MMOs because that's everyone's favorite thing to do in Twitch chat is compare MMOs to other MMOs and ask which one's better and whatnot. When it comes to like the viewership aspect of it, for whatever reason, and maybe it's the fact that there's so much story and people don't want to get spoiled or whatnot. What do you think the reason is that Final Fantasy 14's kind of always lagged behind viewership wise?
I don't think it's very interesting to watch personally. Really? Like I feel like the community and the people who stream it are really the driving force behind the directory. Sometimes people want a place to talk about the game that they love or hang out with other people, the game they love. But whether you're doing like, end game that you've done a million times over, or doing a dungeon or, leveling a character, when you say those things out loud, do they sound like the most exciting things? I don't know.
Well, I mean, would you say World of Warcraft is exciting to watch? Because it's kind of the same thing, right? Does it just have a bigger audience, maybe?
Yeah, I think it has a bigger audience. I do actually think the pace of that game makes it better to watch also. It's got a longer legacy that, far precedes streaming. Got to remember Realm Reborn was kind of when streaming was getting into its heydays.
Right.
And, but it just doesn't have the Final Fantasy franchise has the legacy, but 14 has kind of a tarnished legacy that has been rebuilt.
Sure.
And I think World of Warcraft's pace and its legacy and everything has definitely helped it. But I think also there are great personalities there that drive that directory too. I just also think it's easier to watch and easier to understand what you're watching.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, most people probably are looking at the screen and wondering what the fuck is going on while you're fighting a giant owl in a roulette room. And
Yeah, like, you know how many people don't know this feature even exists in 14? This
sure.
treasure map.
Treasure
feature?
map shit. Yeah. It's
Yeah. Most people have no idea it even exists. And, you know, when they're watching, they just go, I don't know what this is.
right. Yeah. Go ahead, Zeke. I could see the question brewing. I see the Zeke question coming. I'm excited.
Well, it's not like it. It's man.
This sounds real sarcastic, but I'm actually like pretty excited for this. It's hard to convey. Again, it still sounds sarcastic. Go ahead, Zeke. Save me. Save me.
You tried, JP.
I tried. Yeah.
We're talking about like this MMO versus that MMO, and obviously like WoW has come up, and people were like, I was looking at chat, and they were saying this FF14 is a little slower paced, and do you think it's because they like? I haven't watched WoW in a long time. The last MMO I actually played was Final Fantasy 14, unless you like count the minor amount of Dauntless that I played, which is not MMO. Right?
Yeah. Let's just retract that
Do
statement.
not
Zeke. Let's
confuse.
not
Yeah,
get down
okay.
that road. Yeah.
'Cause
Go back.
that's a completely different thing. Okay, so I did play this. I got one character to max at the time was 70. I don't know if it's still the max.
It is.
But
Will be for 2 more days.
That's true. Yeah.
this
Yeah,
one
think of
has
80.
more like side shit, fanfare. Every time you do something, there's like something that happens, and that's what it kind of. Do you think that's what causes the slower pace of the game? Is that there's so much more detail in the fine things that they don't like. It's hard to move from one thing to the next. Like in WoW, it's just like, isn't it just like raids a lot, and then you grind equipment and that kind of shit. Like, what would you say is the biggest difference between this and other one?
I think the pace. A lot of people when they determine pace, they determine it by the global cooldown, which is, you know, when you press every skill, a bunch of other skills have the same cooldown as that skill.
Huh.
And in Final Fantasy 14, the base for that's 2.5. In World of Warcraft, I think it's like 1 or 1.5 or something in that area.
Yeah.
So the amount of interaction per minute is really high on that regard. But there's a bunch of other skills that are happening in Final Fantasy 14 between that time. But the game is still designed around that time. So bosses have longer cast times or animations take longer. So everything's longer. And I think that impacts it a lot. World of Warcraft is a lot of instant gratification, and pretty much every button you press, every action you take, every action even an enemy takes is all way quicker. Whereas with Final Fantasy, it's just designed entirely differently. So I just think it is something that is a very acquired taste to watch if you're watching
Sure.
for the game itself.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, man, like once I hit max level and I got all the access to all the spells and stuff, because I was playing
Black
I don't
Mage.
fucking know. Black Mage, there you go. Dragon Black Mage. Dragonborn, or whatever the fuck you call him in this game. There you go. It's been a while. It's
No,
been a
I
while.
know it
And
is. That's why
I
I'm
never
here.
bothered to learn all of the terminology anyway, because there's a fuckload of it.
Yep.
But once I got all the access to everything, I gotta say, when someone sat me down and was like, "Here, my son, this is how you play a Black Mage," and I was like, "Wait a minute!" But I just pressed the big boom and then the little boom button, right? And they're like, "No. That is not how you do it. You press big boom, little boom. Then you go to this thing. You press this thing. It's on another keyboard and in the other room. You press that. Come back to this room. You press the big boom one more time, and then you sprinkle some dirt on your keyboard, just really lightly, and that's your loop. That's how you do things." It's just like,
Yeah.
ah!
It,
What?
yeah.
That's about right.
It gets
Wow,
really
it was like-
intense.
It was like 1, 2, 3, 4 in WoW. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4. Back when I was playing, like this was years and years ago. But it was just like, your DPS, you do these 3 things like over and over and over and over and over again. When I was playing, this one was like, there's like 8 fucking things. Like, do you think that accounts for like why people like are maybe haven't picked it
It's
up? As much?
intimidating. It's really intimidating. So one of the new jobs coming out is called Dancer, and people asked me to describe it today because patch notes came out, so people are just asking a bunch of questions. And I had to say, well, you have this 2-button combo, and each of those 2 buttons has a proc for another button that is an empowered version of that button, and each of those has a proc for one of your fan dance skills, and each of your fan dances has a proc for fan dance 3. And then you got your steps, which is like DDR, where it gives you 2 random ones out of 4, and then when you press it, you give a buff to people, and it deals damage, and people are just like,
That's about the point they glaze over, right?
Yeah.
huh? There
Yep.
you go. It can be pretty intimidating. It can be pretty intimidating.
You have Mac.
I have every job maxed on one character, and then I
Okay.
have a few characters across a few data centers that have
Well,
like 2 or 3
yeah.
maxed each. Yeah. So
Totally forgot that's how that works. It's not different characters. It's one character, but you can do everything. Kind
Right.
of thing.
yeah, the only thing I don't have maxed is fishing, which
How
I
dare you?
don't.
Yeah. How
I
did?
don't.
Jeez.
I'd
You're
listen.
not even a gamer. What are you doing, man? You can't admit shit like
56.
that.
It's 56. It's
So-
just not 70.
I kind of want to jump back to that, to the idea that not necessarily how addicted you are to the game and with everyone maxed at 70, but the idea that like once you hit max level, the game definitely changes. Because like Zeke said, when you're leveling, you're kind of just pressing like fire for Black Mage, you're fire 3, fire 3, fire. Okay, now I need mana, ice. Okay,
There's
now
some black
let's-
mages who
Yeah.
heard you say fire three times in a row, and then
Sure,
get real
sure,
upset
totally.
right now.
But as when you're leveling, it doesn't matter, right? The second you get into raids is when
Oh
that
my
shit
God.
happens. But
Oh my god! It all just came flooding back to me.
oh,
Like it all just like all
Of
of
the
the, memories
rotation?
of the little circle thing, like
right.
showing me it's like, oh god, it's you got to do this, and then you got to go switch
But-
back to ice, and then you do this to repump up your shit, and then you got to, oh my god. And when you said fire three times in a row, I went, oh, I know what he means.
Sure,
oh,
yeah.
I know what he means.
Yeah, that addiction's seeping back in. But what I'm saying is, like, the game doesn't necessarily tell you to do any of that until you get to raids and realize, like, oh, I'm doing this for the past 70 levels, I was doing this unbelievably wrong. And the only people to really correct you are the other people that you're potentially raiding with, and they're screaming at this point.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that you're doing like 2 DPS. But yeah, like the game, I think, does a poor job of actually like informing you on the proper way to play your class, apart from like things lighting up on the hotbar, right? In terms of like, hey, this combos into this, because when I press this button, this other thing lit up. So I kind of feel like it could do a little bit better job in the leveling process of actually informing a player how to play. But that's a whole thing that I don't even know how to begin to do that, let alone to even tell Square how to do that.
Yeah, they consider doing something called, so we have a Hall of the Novice, which explains basic MMO concepts for someone who may have never played the whole genre before.
Mm.
But that doesn't teach you anything about how to play your job or your role or anything. Well, it does your role, but not your job. So
Right.
There's been a lot of talk about a Hall of the Intermediate, which goes more into, I guess what you just described, but they have concerns over them telling people how to play the jobs versus the players themselves being, like that being part of the discovery process. And
Sure.
I operate under one major pretense in video games. People will play them how they want to, however they enjoy them. And that goes with how well you play in an MMO. Like if someone wants to improve, they want to improve. And if they don't, they don't. So even if they put all that in the game, I have no confidence that someone who really doesn't want to know. It's okay if you learn at some point you were doing it wrong and you change it. But if you wanted to know, you'd probably go find a way, in my opinion.
Let me
So
ask you
I would
this.
love for them to introduce something like that, but I could see why they haven't yet.
Sure. I want to ask you this, and I feel like this might be unfair to do on a show because this is probably going to earn a lot of.
Always a great way to
Now
start a
I'm
question.
excited.
Yeah. Well, yes. I'm just going to go ahead and ask it rather than preface it with all this bullshit that I usually
Let's
do.
do it.
Is it easier in World of Warcraft to be good at the game than it is in Final Fantasy?
I think so.
That's a loaded question,
rated
but
in
it's
WoW.
like it's easier to like transition from leveling to raiding than it is in Final Fantasy. No?
Let me give you an example of why I'm a solid yes
Okay.
on that.
Okay.
I had a friend who had to go, like, ironically, Ko's not going to be happy about this, wait for a pizza. And
And all great stories start with that, believe it or not. Coast, some great
yeah,
things are
we
going to
should
happen
have told
soon.
them that it's the day after your birthday and you need your pizza now.
Mm-hmm.
But he had to go wait for one, and he needed me to do Ice Crown on his warrior. And he had one macro, and he said, press this macro over and over again. And occasionally when these other two skills light up, press those. And I did the highest DPS in that boss kill.
Did you say DK? Were
That's
you
how
a
he
Frost DK? Is that what you're playing?
No, he was a warrior. I don't remember if it was Arms or Fury at the time, but it was the fourth boss of Ice Crown. And it was like 12k DPS for that.
Okay.
Some people are saying it was Fury.
That might have been Fury, yeah.
Yeah.
It
was like 12k DPS. I was like, this is stupid.
Sure.
It's absolutely stupid.
Okay. Well, I mean, the reason I said that, and to be fair, I don't think Mr. Happy's saying that Final Fantasy is a harder game than WoW. I want to make sure that that's clear. Right?
Harder to play it right.
Yes. Yeah. I think is a fair statement for sure. And I think that's something that like Square could definitely work on. Like the thing that I like about Square is that they are not out there saying like this game is perfect, right? Like they know that the A Realm Reborn 1 to 50 leveling experience is flawed and it's slow. Like Zeke can attest to that, having done it probably the most recent out of all of us. Like it is tedious. The quests are absolutely mind-numbingly boring up to a certain point. It's not the best way to introduce someone to the game when you have to say, yeah, you got to get through like 60 to 80 hours.
Or when you have to pay to skip the content.
Right. Or yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which
this is so bad that we're going to make you give us money to get through it.
Well, I think what they would say is if you want to play the latest and greatest content, you can skip it. Not this is so bad, right? Like that's the marketing pitch.
Yeah.
But it's not the greatest. And Zeke, you can agree to this, right? Like I said, you've done it most recently. It was not fun.
Yeah. Most of the like 1 through 50, I was going like sound off, watching something else, and just like I was playing on controller, like leveling up because it was just easier to lay in bed and do that. So I was just like, one side of the screen was like me doing Final Fantasy like questing and grinding up to max level and shit, and the rest of it was just me watching like I don't know, fucking The Office or something, just like
yeah.
It's like I mean, it's not great when like a game can't keep your attention as much, but the motion of it, the enjoyment of like getting another level every day, it's like was enough to keep me going.
Yeah, the drip, the IV drip.
This is something I wanted to ask you. And you're not a psychiatrist or anything, so I'm not expecting you
that we know of. Jeez, don't assume,
or whatever, but
Zeke.
You could be. You're right, absolutely.
But we don't know what he does.
Right now, I am. I'm about to be.
You don't know me. But I played it up to level 70, and I did all the the dungeons and stuff up till then, and then I just kind of like fell out of love with it. I mean, have you seen that happen before, or do you know why that happens?
I see people fall out of love with it before they hit 70 because they're tired of doing quests. So you made it that far. Yeah. A big thing with Final Fantasy is it's very, very story focused. So like the easiest way to compare it is to like a show you'd watch on Netflix. Like, have you ever had a show on Netflix where there's like really good seasons, but the bad ones kind of make you not really want to watch it? You just want to do something else instead. Yeah, Realm Reborn is one very controversial season of Netflix shows because
it's the
Realm
season
Reborn.
Of Final Fantasy, really, when you get down to
it. It's the season 3 of Dexter is what I always say.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Because season 3, not very good, but season 4, what comes right after, is great. Like A Realm Reborn is pretty much your quintessential Final Fantasy story. Oh, there's crystals, there's bad guys, here's a lot of fanfare for Final Fantasy fans. And then you get those 100 quests, which some stuff's good, some stuff's not, but it's really long. Everything after that is much quicker to get through and is much better written and is much better acted, and there's more voice acting and all that stuff. But that first stretch is the toughest. So I see a lot more people give up in that stretch than I see them give up at 70. Because once you hit 70, the game's an open book. You can go and You can go finish all the 24-man stories if you didn't finish them before. You can go do all the primals, do all the stories for anything you missed, and then plus all the stuff that's actually at 70. But if you don't care about any of the stuff in the world or the story, is how much drive is there really?
Right.
You know?
And I think that might have been why you ended up quitting so fast, Zeke, is that there was no carrot on a stick, at least right in front of you anymore, right? Like the main quest had been done, so mentally you were done with it. Whereas the other stuff that you're supposed to do at max level, like the game doesn't just hit you in the face to be like, hey, you should go do this. It's like, hey, you know, there's a lot of things that you can do right now. Which one do you want to do? And if you're not invested in like doing that stuff or seeking that stuff out, I should say, then yeah, you're just going to cold turkey quit.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I get that might be it. It's because there's like a through line. There's a plot throughout the entire game. And then you hit max level and it's like, now all of these points, you can visit all of these points. And I just went,
Yeah. Someone brought up a great point in chat. Basically what JP had happened to him with Warframe. Yeah, 100%. I finished the like main story stuff, the like main quest or whatever, and I got done with it. And I was like, well, I could either like level these other Warframes and level these guns, or just stop. And like that.
Once I got one punch frame, I was done.
Yeah,
Atlas.
that's what happens to me in Path of Exile every league. Like that's the routine. I get to whatever the goal was, and then I'm like, all right, I'm good. We'll see you in 2.5 months, and we'll make a new goal up. So I think that's probably what happened to Zeke. Then you also got shown through, like, to be fair, you had somewhat of a spoiled, not necessarily like spoiled story-wise, but you were spoiled as a person, as a streamer, being in the FC, because like you got to see a lot of the cool shit and be kind of, I don't want to say carried, but be brought to a lot of the cool shit from people in the FC, like showing you the cool shit to keep you interested. Yeah.
oh, for sure. Yeah, that's absolutely no question. I do miss the dance though. I miss the
dance,
like the dance of a boss battle. Like,
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's the 1 1 2 3 1 2 1 3 1 2 1 1 2 3 1 4.
right.
Like that kind of shit. No, that's what it was like. Like that's what you do to get your mana up. You do this and then you fireball them again. Like it was great.
Yeah.
I like your song.
Yeah, that's a song you would sing. Funny enough.
When's the album coming out?
Yeah. Did you ever? You never like went into a proper 8-man raid or 24-man raid, did you, Zeke? Did you ever do any of that stuff? Okay.
I don't think I did a big raid. I think that what's the step down from that?
The form. Well, you probably did like the
mode?
trials, leveling up, and doing the main story quests like Garuda and Titan and all those guys. You probably did that at least once. Yeah.
I did those a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, but like the Savage is like the hard mode content when it comes to the 8-man raid towards the end of the game, or rather at the end of the game, not towards. Like that stuff, everything you just said, like it's that, but you're adding in like all the different mechanics and stuff like that. And I think that's where I wish Square would do a better job of like introducing players to that, because that's like for my interest, and I think for a lot of people's interest, like the best stuff in Final Fantasy. Like some of those fights are fucking, like this is a 24-man fight. There's a decent amount of mechanics in this 24-man raid, but like it pales in comparison to some of the 8-man stuff that you can do. In terms of like what you have to learn and all that. Like, have you done, you've completed UCOB, right, Mr. Happy? You've done it?
Yeah, I've been both the ultimate fights.
Okay. Do you have a VOD of that anywhere on YouTube that I can just show so people understand it? I can find it if it is. I'm just asking.
Do you want UCOB or do you want the weapons refrain?
You tell me which is the best to show. I just kind of want to show like what the extent of the game is at the highest levels.
I think weapons refrain is better to show personally.
Okay. I'll do some work here. Let's see.
No, I can find the link for you if you want.
I'll probably find it.
I was thinking as I'm watching the 24-man, I'm like, man, if they saw ultimate right now.
No, I already got it. We're good.
Oh, you got it? Wow, you're quick.
Yeah.
You got through my content faster than I got through my content.
Oh, you're what? Oh, this is the mechanics explanation. Okay. Like explain what's going on here so people understand. You're doing a lot of pausing. I might try to find a different VOD for this, but explain the process of this.
All right, so basically, Ultimate's the highest difficulty of the game. It was added in the most recent expansion, and we got 2 encounters: the Unending Coil of Bahamut and the Weapons Refrain. And they basically take a lot of bosses that we fought and stories that they told, and they remix them into this incredibly high difficulty encounter. You can't outgear the encounter. it's capped at a level and an item level, so you can never outgear it ever. They're still going to be doing that in the next expansion. So if you want to challenge it, once you're 80, you'll have to sink down to 70 and challenge it at its original difficulty. And it just combines a ton of bosses and a lot of cryptic mechanics and stuff that we've experienced before. Like this is the first of 4 bosses, Garuda, which most people are familiar with from A Realm Reborn. There's a shield there that will detonate a debuff, and we need to detonate a certain number of debuffs in order to empower her, or we can't get to a later phase of the fight. So what ended up happening with this encounter is we all went through the early encounters. We didn't know we had to power the bosses up on purpose. We got to the final part of this, like the first half of the fight. We learned we did the whole first part wrong and had to redo it. And there's just a ridiculous number of things going on at any given time that stopping to explain them gets a little overwhelming even for me. Like 2 bosses just jumped, so if a bunch of feathers came down, now they're both going to land. They're going to tether players, and tanks have to, well, they're not even going to tether them. They're going to target 2 players, and then tanks have to take the hits for the other players while there's an AoE in the middle, but then the AoEs that got aimed at the tanks now leave behind these puddles on the ground. If you touch the wall, you die, so just never forget that. Now we've got these other tethers on us, which are ads. We got to group up. We got to kill them fast while we also make sure to do these 2 other tethers that are coming from the ads on the side. You can see these 2 tethers here. 2 people with debuffs need to go and take those away from the group. This is going to empower the boss right here. We take a bunch of damage. Oh, did we not do that one right? That didn't look right. No, it's right. We did it right.
No, this actually, so you're good.
You know what you found? You found a clip of before we figured out how to do the fight correctly.
Oh,
so that was, yeah. So this is that we don't actually know how to do the fight, and we're still just doing it a certain way.
Sure.
Version of it. So. Like normally here, that AoE gets transformed into a new one where you have to go in. So it's just the whole fight is we could talk about that for 2 hours straight, and I probably still wouldn't get through everything correctly.
The people that kind of guide me through Final Fantasy XIV a lot of times have informed me that this fight as well as UCOB are about like 2 to 3 months of wiping for a normal static 8-man group. Is that about accurate in terms of learning the fight?
Yeah, I forgot. I think world first for UCOB was 11 days, and world first for Weapons Refrain was like 8 or 9. I know we were going at it for like 8 to 16 hours a day for like 10 or 11 days before we beat it. So now take that and translate it to like a more traditional group that can maybe play like 3 nights a week, 2-3 hours kind of commitment. Right. But if you're really good, you'll get through it in quicker than that. Now that all the fight information is out there, you can research it. Like this was trying to figure it out from scratch. Oops. Yeah, so it's a much different experience. But I've seen groups beat it in as little as 30 to 40 hours, but that's still not a low amount of time.
Right? Yeah.
For one thing,
most rating content kind of get, at least when it first comes out, can get through that a little bit faster. We should also be clear. That's like, how many people would you say have cleared that of the entire Final Fantasy XIV audience? 1%.
I'm sure there's a guy who does unofficial censuses on stuff like this called Lucky Bancho.
Yeah.
And I feel as if he would probably have an accurate percent, but I'd say, less than 1% approximately have actually cleared the ultimate encounters. More have cleared Weapons Refrain than UCOB, I'm pretty sure.
Right. Yeah.
Because UCOB is brutal.
Yeah. I took some, my FC people were like, hey, you should come check out this fight real quick for the first 3 minutes, and we wiped in probably 5 seconds on first people. And they were like, this is fun, isn't it? I was like, all right, let's do it again. And then we were like, oh shit, we died in 3 seconds this time. Okay, well, I don't want to learn this, so let's go.
Yeah, you got hit by a twister.
Yeah, it was the twisters. It was the boss started casting a spell called Twister. And the way that it works is you have to preemptively move, or this twister drops, and if it hits you, it knocks you into someone else, and you take a shit ton of damage, and they take a shit ton of damage. And if you hit the edge of the like little circle, you just instantly die. So it's kind of just like this ping pong effect of, oh god, you all have to move in a good rotation, or you just die. And that's like the first thing that happens in the first 5 seconds of the fight, which is the first boss of like 5 different stages of the fight. It's like a 20-minute fight where you can't fuck up once, or it's a full-on wipe. You have to play perfect.
It's about 18 minutes for that, about 15 for the Weapons Refrain.
Yeah.
And one screw up and it's back to the beginning.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Oh, yeah. My favorite fight that people don't really get to see much nowadays is Brute Justice, which was from back in the Heavensward days.
Mm-hmm.
It was the final boss of Midas Savage. I'd say that fight's probably about equivalent to like a shorter ultimate to some degree.
Yeah.
It's basically a giant Super Sentai robot with combines a bunch of bosses from the previous bosses in that raid tier. And it's a wonderful, between the music being like this 90s like Sentai theme that you'd hear on top of the robot transforming and splitting apart and coming back together. That's a pleasure. I'd highly advise anyone look up the world first to that because it is a great fight to watch.
Cool. Zeke, you were going to ask something?
I'm just sorry. I'm absolutely like mesmerized. I remember like looking all this stuff up and watching like for the first time in a long time, watching videos and seeing how to do like how to play video game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just remembering like for those of maybe in the audience and maybe you JP would be a good person to ask, like, am I remembering it incorrectly, or are the fights in Final Fantasy like far more like the big raid fights? Like, are they far more intense and involved than in WoW?
I think
or
it's
are they similar?
I think it's a different type of intensity, and I think most of that intensity comes from the fact that like the music in 14 makes it intense, whereas WoW like the music's not necessarily. It's not, I think memorable is the word that I will use. It's not something that I'm going to load up and like listen to after the fact, but each boss in Final Fantasy 14 has like unique music that is usually like 2 or 3 different parts, depending on how many phases the boss has. And it's like exceptional music. And that alone, it sounds really stupid, but that alone like makes you want to play better and like puts more impact on your actual moves and like the things that you're doing in the fight just because of how good and hyped the music is. And so in that sense, I think it's a little bit more like intense, like you were saying. I also think that there's more like one-shot mechanics and at least in normal stuff when it comes to rating in this. And Mr. Happy, feel free to jump in and throw your opinion out there for sure. But
I think the statement that they're just different, because in WoW, when I remember it, and I haven't played since Cataclysm days, but it was always about juggling a lot of little things. There weren't these like, it wasn't a jump rope like Final Fantasy 14 is, where you get tripped and you fall on your face and that's it. It's over. In WoW, it was always like, I remember like groups clumping up and then people getting marked for debuffs and one person run this way, one person run that way. And, maybe a room filling up with fire over time or things like that. Like it kind of just grates at you over time to the point where the last 5-10%, it's like there's barely anything left kind of. Whereas in Final Fantasy 14, you're kind of just doing this skip dance the whole way through. And then how much that affected your ability to kind of get to that end point where you're like, oh my goodness, this is the end. We have like just a few seconds left. It's similar by the end, but getting there is totally different.
I would agree with that. Yeah, that's a good assessment of it for sure. Well, let's talk about what's coming up. Oh, go ahead. By all means, before we jump on.
That's what I was going to ask, was like, why? So specifically, Mr. Happy is the guest today for I'm guessing for a pretty particular reason.
Right. Yeah. Shadowbringers coming out Friday, big expansion. You were there at you were there at the press event, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess pitch Shadowbringers. Like what are people expecting for Friday?
Well, we're hoping it works first.
Right. That
Good start.
funny enough,
That's
a big hope. Like with the preface of like, this is the most concurrent subs that Final Fantasy has ever had. They've been out there saying that a lot. At the start of the last expansion, there was some issues.
oh yeah.
That were a lot of fun. Like, I don't remember the specific instance, but it was at least 30 hours. I forget how long it was before it got fixed.
Steel.
Yeah.
Old steel.
They the instance,
It didn't work for 30 hours?
the game worked.
Barely.
You could play, but you couldn't progress the main story at a certain point because there were so many people that were trying to be loaded into an instance. Remember the lines? Yeah. That's that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, this is line
The
gate.
lines
This
didn't
is
work.
Robin
Hopefully they learned
Robin
some valuable lessons from that.
They did. Yeah, and Mr.
Yeah.
Happy, you can probably talk a little bit about that because they've been very vocal about like, yeah, we fucked up, we've put some stuff in it. So what are they promising, or at least trying to promise for Friday's launch?
So the big thing is they're very aware of what the community dubs Raubon Extreme, which is the name of the NPC that held a quest. It was a quest at about 45 minutes into pretty much anyone, whether you're going hardcore or you're just trying to watch the cutscenes and casually enjoy it. Everyone pretty much hit it within an hour. And that overload across the entire data center, across every data center, basically couldn't handle it. And it's just occasionally some people would get through and then it wouldn't work for a while. Then people get through, but it was just this slow crawl. And it was happening with every instance because it was clogging all the instance servers, including dungeons, including other quests that you could try to do. So a couple things they've done since then. One is they're not putting one of those an hour into the story. Probably the biggest lesson to learn.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing if you have like a choke point like that, like 2, 3, 4 hours in, when only the most hardcore of people who are trying to skip everything to get to the end, you're less likely to have an issue. But when everyone reaches it in 30 to 45 minutes, it's a huge issue. But on top of that, a few months ago, they incorporated a queuing system for those solo instances. Before you just have to talk to the NPC, and you either got in or you didn't, and you'd have to skip the cutscene before it, and then be like, it didn't work. Try again. Now it'll just queue you in, and when it's your turn, it'll just do it sequentially. It'll send you into the solo instance, and so it doesn't have to worry about clogging as much for that.
So no more bottleneck.
Hopefully.
Yeah, theoretically.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
I mean, the other thing is, and like, I think it's the most worrisome to players of the game is like, it's the most active subs that the game has ever had. And this is before the expansion has even released. Like, this was reported about a month ago when they were out there saying that. So it's even more so now, most likely. And they're all being thrown into, logging in on Friday. And so I'm so unbelievably curious to see what those queues are going to be like. Like, we're talking like hour-long queues potentially.
Queuing into the game was the other problem.
Yeah, because that existed in when Stormblood launched the current expansion, the new one, Shadowbringers, that's launching on Friday. So
Yep.
there might be like a super crazy queue.
Well, a big concern there was, people are getting kicked out in mass and then trying to log back in mass because of all the issues that were taking place. So you would sit in an hour, 2 hour, 3 hour login queue, and that killed a lot of people's interest. It's hard to sit there, especially if you're trying to broadcast it, on launch. Like, I am so excited. Everyone's like,
dude, I was doing a sponsored stream, and Square even was like, all right, yeah, you can go to sleep if you want. Like, none
of that will rival the release, though.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
Yeah, we'll
not even close.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So, and yeah, it does. Still, none of it rivals the release for sure. Like, it was a huge clusterfuck.
To this day, almost over 5 years on Twitch, and I can safely say that the Final Fantasy XIV ARR was the most cluster launch of any product so far that I've seen on Twitch.
But, and I'm trying to remember, and you two can help me with this. Was it because there were issues with playing the game, or was it because they were out there like saying that they were going to DMCA if you showed story stuff?
Yeah, it was 100% a marketing issue.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So basically, what happened was they sequentially released the expansion, and then what happened is Square was trying to do this little streamer program. So what they did was they put out 2 different dates and said, if you're in the program, you can do this date. If you're not in the program, you can do this date. But then they didn't tell anyone who was like officially in the program. And then they let some people in that were friends of people in the program. And then they DMCA'd other people that were actually in the program. And what essentially happened was, for the first 3 days of Final Fantasy VII ARR, many people joined me in doing a no gameplay stream.
Right.
For 12 plus hours a day.
Right.
So literally, it was a giant picture with my webcam in the middle of me playing Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy XIV, of me playing the game, and with Cat on the screen, and us just talking about, basically, I was like shoutcasting my MMO gameplay.
Oh yeah. I stopped.
If you think that sounds lame, that's because it's really lame.
Yeah.
I didn't know about any of this.
Yeah. So I was
Didn't know about any
playing
of that.
just like Co did until that point, and then I didn't play. Rather, when Co kept playing, I was like,
Yep.
I don't want to get my channel DMCA'd or have the possibility for it. So I just stopped.
So
yeah.
so 30. I have 36 hours of streaming on my channel where I was just no lifing Final Fantasy 14 ARR on release, and all it is just a giant webcam of me. And then what's even more hilarious is they said that like midway through, so like halfway through the second day, they said, okay, you guys can let other people play if you do this exact way of doing it. And this website that had been watching me was like, yo, you're our guy. Go ahead and start playing. Like, you got this. So I was like, awesome. So I flipped my stream over, and within an hour, I had a Square rep sending an email to Twitch being like, you need to tell this person to get that gameplay off his channel. And I was just like,
Yeah.
what is, like, who can I talk to? What is going on? And then the guy that gave me the code contacted me and said, oh, by the way, they just said we can't do that now.
Yeah.
I didn't know any of this. I wasn't even partnered yet when this happened.
It's quintessential Japan, right? Like,
yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Yeah, there's a reason why Nintendo is still so bad when it comes to multiplayer stuff, and it's mostly just Japanese development. Like they don't understand, or back then, I should say, they didn't understand. Like now, like we were talking about, Mr. Happy got invited out to the influencer thing. They're in San Francisco. Like,
oh, these days it's a different game.
It's a completely different game. Yeah, both in the influencer world and as a game itself. But yeah,
they brought me. I mean, they brought me out to Japan,
right?
Or the JP
That's
festival.
So cool, dude.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
Yeah, I was a little overwhelmed by that. I still get a little overwhelmed when I think about it too.
Yeah, were you there when they did like that the musical performance with the devs or whatever? Were you in that crowd?
I went to I was at the North American one, so I watched that one.
Okay.
When I was in Japan, the fan festival was in one location, but I had to go to Shinjuku the same night, which is about an hour drive away, or about an hour train ride. So it was like 7 or 8 p.m. when the concert started. So I decided that I saw the concert at NA, so I'm gonna just head to the hotel now because I haven't eaten. I've been on my feet all day. So I didn't stick around for that one in Japan, but I can tell you about going to the North American one for several years. It is always a treat.
Yeah, it's really weird to see like the lead. Well, he has a different place now, but the lead localization person like rapping on stage to a song from Final Fantasy at a boss fight and just like nailing it and kind of like being a badass. Like it's really weird to see.
It's funny because I asked him about that. I was like, was that really you rapping? He's like, yes. I went around because he lives and works in Japan. He was like, I had to, Soken made me do it. I said, you want a 40-year-old white bald dude rapping to your song? And he's like, yes. So he said he was every day, he's like a 45-minute commute to work, that he would just be rapping it to himself, and all the people that would walk by would be like, crazy gaijin. All the time. So he really committed himself to getting some of those raps down.
Yeah, I'm trying to show. I'm trying to find that VOD without. We'll show it without audio, but just because it's absolutely absurd. But let's talk Shadowbringers for a little bit, because I feel like we've talked about like all the bad stuff in the game, rightfully so, or at least the bad stuff that's happened thus far. Shadowbringers this week, launching Friday at fucking 5 a.m. Eastern. Good Lord. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, you're Pacific. Oh, it's 4 for me. So yeah, we'll be up early.
East Coast, West Coast. Woo!
Yeah. That's about 2 hours before you normally start, Co. So not too bad for you. But for everyone else,
only I was playing the game.
Sure. Yeah. Europe though, Europe's great. It's like noon. It's like 11 a.m. for them. So Europe wins for once.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, what are they putting out there? What are you looking forward to? I guess is where we should start with Friday.
It's tough to nail one thing. Like, yeah, I'm looking forward to playing Dancer because it's a job that I've wanted for a long time, and it's going to be a DPS, and I'm very excited for it. But I'd say the shift in tone is really the biggest thing. Final Fantasy 14's, I wouldn't say it's ever had like a happy-go-lucky tone, but it always felt kind of
anime.
I mean, it's not that it won't in this, I suppose. So, I mean, that's accurate, but it's not like that's going away. In fact, They released 2 literal anime ads in Japan in the last week.
Yeah, actual anime. Yeah.
Yeah, like 30-second fully animated ads. But it's just that I guess it's called Shadowbringers. It's a little corny, but it's a much darker tone, I suppose, to the game. It's more high fantasy, less tech. Still tech, but just the areas, the music, like everything. There's just like a different sense of the game, like an actual foreboding atmosphere that I'm far more interested in than the Far Eastern theme that we had for the majority of the last few years, or some of the more, dragon, like a lot of focus on dragons for the first few years. Like I like dragons, I like Far Eastern aesthetics, but it just the tone and the atmosphere is way different here. There's like an actual sense of dread and uncertainty, and I feel like they've done a good job of they've given us the information we want without telling us too much.
Sure.
I suppose. So there's a lot of mystery and a lot of uncertainty going into Shadowbringers compared to previous expansions. It's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Anything that for players that have kind of fallen off or in Zeke's case, just cold turkey quit during Heaven's Ward, is there anything that you think should be highlighted for a potential thing to come back to or potential thing to check out?
I think the changes to the jobs is a big thing. They make changes all the time, but we talked about it earlier, things maybe just not being as easy to understand when you first look at them. Some jobs that won't change too much. Some jobs are just going to get more things on top of the things they already had before. So if you didn't get it before, you won't get it now. But certain things like tanking, there's no longer like a tank stance and an offense stance. Your tank stance only affects how much aggro you get. And so you're always focusing on doing as much DPS as possible. And that's a natural means of going through aggro. Whereas before it was like you had aggro combos that like the hardcore players would tell you were a waste of time. And then they were doing DPS combos and telling other players to do DPS combos. But the players who don't understand it as well would just lose aggro because they don't really understand how to play the jobs as well. So there's a lot of confusion and, skill discrepancy there, but it's been streamlined a lot more. So now you either know how to play the jobs or you don't.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that kind of gives people a little more confidence, I suppose, when it comes to hopping into the game and actually understanding what's happening. So that's a big thing. On top of that, more story. Again, it's like Netflix. If you like a season on Netflix, it's like a new season coming out on Netflix, pretty much.
Sure.
And that's always a good reason. They're also adding some new systems in 5.0. They're streamlining the Fate system, which are kind of like, I guess you compare it to another MMO like Guild Wars, quests out in the world.
World
people
Quest,
might be familiar with. Yeah, like the World Quest and Guild Wars. They're streamlining them, making them tell more stories. They're making it so there's like reputation systems, but not like mandatory reputation systems for them. So you can use them for leveling, and you can get things like new mounts and crafting materials and stuff, so you're a little more motivated. 5.0 side quests, you can sync them to your level. So like if you're 70, but the quest is 79, it'll sync down to 70 for you. So you can use it as another means of leveling or just more motivation to get through the side quests. Crafting's being completely like changed the way the UI works and everything, far more clarity there. I think that's a big thing. They're trying to increase clarity without telling you what you have to do in this expansion. And that's a big thing because, we spent 30 minutes talking about how they could improve that. Shadowbringers is at least taking some steps to do that for new players.
Sure. Yeah, it's the whole thing of like, well, you have to play, 200 hours or pay to get to it, right? Like I think that's going to be the eternal problem until they have the ability to go back and say like, all right, we're going to redo the beginning of this game because I feel like 1 to 50 is a completely different game. Sometimes like 1 to 50 was, oh God, we have to save Square because we almost put this company out of business. Please put this out there. Okay, good. We're making money now. Now let's actually focus on like making a really good game. And that's, each expansion, Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, now this, it's just gotten better and better over time. Because they've gotten more resources over time, right? Like it's become one of the main cash cows for Square. Just like World of Warcraft is one of the main cash cows for Blizzard to this day, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder whenever they'll go back and like redo that or take a look at it to see what they can change and what they need to change.
They've mentioned it quite a few times. They say that a lot of the time it's a matter of when they want to create something really high quality that's current, anytime they have to go back and think about doing the old stuff, it is taking resources away from the next new thing. But they completely understand. They're already talking about doing a stat squish for the next expansion because that's now a more yes. They said that it will become a problem. They want to get ahead of. Obviously, they kind of wish they had that foresight going into the main scenario quests, but now they kind of have an idea of getting behind an issue or getting ahead of an issue instead of being behind it. I think a lot of that early game experience is because you just said you have to go through 200 hours.
Mm-hmm.
What they would hope would be the case would be you have 200 hours of a game to play, which, most of the time when I think of buying a game purchase, if someone tells me it'll take me 200 hours to beat it or to get to another part of it, I'll be like, hell yeah, that was worth my money.
Right.
It's a big matter of perspective with that. But everyone says, wait till you get to end game. And it's like, well, I want to be there now. Everyone tells everyone, you got to be 70. Oh, you got to be 80. And it's like, I got to get through all this.
And I think that carries through, Burke Black, friend of the show and streamer, has been getting into it as of, I think about last week he started playing Final Fantasy. And he started out, he got in the game and had level 1 character and walked around. And then he leveled up to 50 through the potion. He got outside and started doing some Heaven's Ward quest and got about halfway through the first level and was like, all right, I'm going to buy the next potion skip. And now he's level 60 at the beginning of Stormblood, and he'll probably buy the level skip on Friday for level 70.
Yep. That was what I was about to say. For anyone wondering, there will be a new potion available on Friday for early access that will skip to all the Stormblood leveling and story. Well, there's one story potion and one leveling potion.
Right, there's 2 different potions you have to acquire for sure. Yeah.
How much are they a piece?
I'm not sure.
25 a piece.
They're 25 a piece? Okay.
Yeah.
They're discounted for, or they're discounted. They're cheaper than that for the first ones. Yeah.
Yeah, the level 60 ones right now are discounted. No, they're 25 normally. That's how they. I think it matter if it's your first one or not.
I think.
You mean for Realm Reborn and Heavensward? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're 1750 right now for Stormblood. I'm not sure what the other ones are.
Yeah.
But again,
they're 25 a piece.
Yeah, again, it's not the case where Square is out there saying hey, you have to do this. It's just an option, which I think just the fact they give you the option is good. Co's laughing, but would you rather it's just hey, play 200 hours of, I don't know.
I can just imagine. It's like, well, it's pay to win, but you have the option to win.
Is it pay to win though? It's pay to skip.
Not telling you have to win. You can pay to win.
I don't know if it's
pay to win.
Winning in an MMO, that's the thing. There's
I think throwing out pay to win is real slippery slope.
And that potion beats you. It beats ultimate for you. Let me know.
Yeah.
No, for the record, Final Fantasy, there's nothing pay to win about 14. I'm not saying.
Okay.
But it's just it drives. It's crazy to me to think about where it's like you purchase the game, you purchase the content.
Sure.
So you have purchased everything in it.
$60.
And then for $25 more, they will do it for you.
Well, here's the thing.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Honestly, I get it. I get it though. But here's the thing. You have a game that has an infinite amount of hours that you could put into it. But many people have told you the slog from level 1 to level 50 is what it is. It's a fucking slog.
Sure.
Let's be honest.
Sure.
Oh, I know.
You have to grind that shit. Am I glad I did it? Yes, I did it. I went through 1 through 50 all the way. I put several 100 something hours just getting 1 to 50. I'm glad I did it, yes. But I can understand when people are like 50 is about where it starts getting really fun. So I don't blame people. And I don't think many people in the Final Fantasy community I never heard anybody talk shit about anybody for skipping ever.
If anything, it's you missed some content, but if you're playing the game, that's fine.
And people, I was talking about people in chat are saying pay to skip content. It's yeah, but you're skipping the content that people have told you is a slog and it's boring, and you want to play with your friends. So your friends are this particular level. I would suggest, if you want to do that, I would suggest going to 50, but leveling from 50 to 70, because that's where you learn all the shit.
Sure.
That's where you learn everything.
I need to
you learn all the the dance that you do with your rotation, basically.
Right.
But I can understand that, because also there's infinite amount of shit after that. Like you can do raids and stuff for like your entire rest of your life.
Yeah.
Okay. I am not for a second arguing that it's not cool that they allow you to skip content. For the record, I think it's great.
Oh,
I think it should be $2.50 per expansion. I think the idea of charging $25 and then having 2 different potions at 25 apiece is in robbery. That's the point I'm trying to make. I think it's awesome that they let you catch up. I think it's great. I think that should be a free thing. The idea that they're charging you like the cost of the game to basically get through some of these expansions, that seems absolutely ridiculous to me. But I think it's awesome that they let you catch up. I think that's great. I think it lets friends play together. You don't have a lot of time. You're an office worker. You're in the army. Awesome. But I think that price is ridiculous. People are saying WoW is 60. That doesn't make it okay. That just means WoW's shittier.
Well, let me ask you this, Co. What does it cost in Warframe to skip stuff, to buy stuff outright? Because you're a Warframe player, you advocate for buying that stuff.
You could spend thousands of dollars on Warframe to skip and get
And you don't have the same argument for that?
If
Is it because you enjoy that game that you don't have the same argument for it?
Free to play, we'd be talking differently. That's the whole point where I was saying you've already bought the game. You've given money for the content that's in it.
It could be argued that right now you can buy like the complete edition and you're buying the expansion and you're getting all the other games at once. You're not buying every single expansion. Like it's $60 to get the base game, Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, and Shadowbringers all at once. $60.
Let me make sure. Let me make sure.
How you doing? You doing good?
So,
you still here?
This happens every week, Mr. Happy. Just enjoy it.
Oh no, what's happening now is when I'm in the chat watching, but everyone gets to see my face while I'm there.
Go ahead, Co.
I don't think I understood it. So I thought that you had to buy the whole thing for 60, and then there were like 3 expansions.
No, it's one $60 thing for all the expansions.
No. I mean, up until now, to skip, there are 3 skip. Tiers.
No, you just buy the most recent one. You don't pay per expansion to skip. You pay the one and you skip the whole thing.
I thought you were saying that you had to buy the game for $60, and then for like 50 to 60 was 25, and then 60 to 70 was 25, and then 70 to
buy the one
I think,
then you're caught up. And I was like, that is ridiculous.
I think you thought that because of what I said about Burke, and Burke just bought it incorrectly.
You can do that. Like you could level to 50 and then buy a 60 skip potion if you wanted to. Like if you're like, whatever, I don't want to do the other 10.
Right.
Or you can just buy the 61.
Patches you up completely for $25.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but it is so. I think where the confusion is where we have 2 different potions. When we said there were 2 different ones, there's one that's for your character's level, and there's one for the story.
Right. Those still.
So you could buy one without the other. You could buy one without the other.
Right.
So most people buy them.
Those are both 25.
You can have a character that's fully caught up in the story, but is like way under leveled for it.
Yeah, like some people, like for example, let's say I have Bard at 70, and I'm done with the story, and I really don't want to do Machinist to 60. I'll just buy the Machinist potion. Or I could just go level it.
It's all one character. Yeah,
gotcha.
It's all one character.
Okay.
That's why that skip exists.
No, and that's honestly what I could totally see myself doing something like that. Once I got a handle on the game and I grinded all the way up to 70, I could see myself going like, you know what? I want to try a new profession, but I don't want to do all the 1 through 50 shit again. So or 1 through 60 or whatever. So you buy that potion to get that job up to 60, and then just kind of like grind learning it.
Yeah, you could do that in theory. It is really easy to level secondaries, but sometimes you don't want to spam a dungeon because that's what it'll boil down to normally. It'll be like spamming something over and over again.
Yeah.
House of the Dead, dungeons, squadrons, whatever it might be. But if you're okay with that, then you could do that pretty quick, usually on a secondary job. The thing is if someone bought the game today that never played it, they would spend $60 and then they might say, oh, well, now let me spend another $50. And then that's their initial purchase. That I could understand Co's point on.
Because then it's 110 to get started, technically.
Exactly. As opposed to actually starting playing the game, going through everything naturally, you've now made this initial decision that's way more expensive. You don't have to make that decision, but the decision is absolutely present for you to make.
Right.
So what's the
Which I think Co's point completely makes sense for that.
Yeah. What's up, Zeke?
What's the feeder bar for you now, Mr. Happy? Like the feeder
What?
bar, like the rat.
What's
in
the carrot on a
cage, like,
stick? We'll use the MMO
What gives
term.
you
What's
what
the
gives you
carrot-
that little pellet, your food pellet? You come back for it every day.
I'm big into the raid scene. I get the most satisfaction out of progressing before anyone knows any of the fights. After that, I lose a little bit of interest in raiding. Like I'll clear every week if there will be another challenge. But I only like clearing raids when I know there's another challenge on the way. So like after 4.4, there wasn't going to be another major like ultimate big difficult raid encounter. So I lost all interest in raiding at that point. So then I would do things like spending time with my community, doing the treasure map dungeons that we did before, making sure I have everything at 70, getting all my crafters leveled, getting my beast tribes to max reputation for those rewards, for those side stories. There's mount grinding, of course, going back to old content, doing mount grinding. So there's a lot of, what I like to say is the difference between Final Fantasy 14 and other MMOs. I feel like a lot of other MMOs focus a lot on like their core identity, and they go really deep into that core identity. I'd argue that like WoW, it's raiding and Mythic Plus, and then PvP to some degree. Like they've got like those three main focuses, and everything you do is pushing those three focuses forward. Whereas Final Fantasy 14 is like a shallow ocean where there's like a million different things you could do, but none of them go too insanely deep. And so, but if you don't want, and people could say, oh, well, someone say, oh, there's no content. And someone might say to that person, well, you can go do this, you go do that, you go do that. But what if you don't want to do those things? The thing that you did like doing is not as deep as everything else. So I like doing everything in the ocean, almost everything in the ocean. So it's easy for me to always have a carrot. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. I love the story. I love looking forward to the next story. I love the raids, next raid, next primal, next everything. Except PvP.
Yeah, PvP is garbage. Don't do the PvP.
It's a whole different topic. A whole different topic.
I mean, MMO PvP, at least World of Warcraft and stuff like that. If it's not open world, if it's not Dark Age of Camelot style, I don't give a fuck. It's
just not for me. That's all I'll say. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
And I'm like not as deep into crafting or gathering. Like I just level them, and there's some depth there that I don't get to experience. But that's the fact. If you have one interest in Final Fantasy 14, it's unlikely that you're going to play it very often.
Sure.
I feel.
I think
so. Just not very deep.
I think one of the interesting parts about 14, and I'm curious to hear if you have a causality for this occurring. For whatever reason, people get really, I guess, invested in the different like characters, and maybe this is just anime culture kind of sinking in or kind of getting into the MMO world, but people are like really adamant and really love their class or the character in the game or the race in the game more so than anything like World of Warcraft or anything like that. Do you think there's a reason for that? Is that just kind of something that Square has cultivated, or is that just what's the reason for that?
I don't know, because I think back to Warcraft and I felt that way, but in World of Warcraft,
Sure.
I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
It's really odd that I feel that way just the whole way through in Final Fantasy. I think they just try harder to make you care. Like World of Warcraft, I don't feel like until maybe recently, I'd say like maybe starting with like Illidan related stuff in the last expansion, I didn't really care about it. They didn't really ever give me a good reason to care about the characters. Things just happened. And there was lore and quests around it. I loved watching stuff like Noble on YouTube to explain all the lore stuff in World of Warcraft, and it got me a little more invested in things like that. But in Final Fantasy, I don't, as much as I love listening to some of our lore aficionados like Ethos and Anonymous talk about that stuff, I don't feel it's as necessary for me to care about the characters. If it's not like a lingering feeling from Warcraft, then I just don't care about them in WoW. I don't know. I just don't feel like they try hard enough.
Sure. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, WoW kind of learned, that a story is important when it comes to MMO from Final Fantasy 14. Like Blizzard's MO is to kind of take what everyone else is doing in their respective games and Blizzardify it and bring it into their stuff. That's kind of every game that they've ever made is that. StarCraft, it's Command and Conquer. World of Warcraft, it's EverQuest.
I really like everyone like, well, just read all the books and you'll get caught up in WoW lore in no time.
Yeah, Jesus. Well, any kind of final thoughts, anything like that you want to impart on the world of drop frames when it comes to Final Fantasy 14?
Well, first of all, just in drop frames, thank you so much for having me on. I don't always get to watch every show, but it's been on a bucket list for me on Twitch for quite some time. So was never going to ask to be on, so it was definitely good to be invited on, and I very much appreciate it. I've watched everyone else who's on the show individually a lot, so I was if anyone watched my stream yesterday, I was pretty overwhelmed when I got the DM. So first of all, big thank you for that one.
Of course.
Second of all, for Final Fantasy 14, I'm not going to sit here. I'm a huge fanboy, but I'm not going to sit here and tell everyone that's a perfect MMO for them. What I will say is that for $60, you could try it for 30 days and figure out for yourself after all of this whether or not you like it. And if you're willing to put up with $25 skip potions or an early game story that doesn't interest you, or because maybe they do interest you. Maybe you're really into the A Realm Reborn story and you don't mind the hundreds of quests that you'll have to do, most of which are not terribly interesting in terms of objective. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you'll get to Heavensward and you'll fall in love with the story there, because I think it's the best Final Fantasy 14 story told to date is the 3.0 story, which is why I compared it to Dexter Season 4 before. And then it follows up and there's just constant evolution. There's a great community for it, both on Twitch and across the in-game themselves. Just tons of insane things. No matter what your interests are, you can generally find a community in Final Fantasy 14 that supports it and you can call home, call family. We have our fan fest every few years. Everyone always has a good time. It's always great. We don't have Diablo disaster announcements most of the time.
They haven't asked us if we have cell phones yet, so they're doing all right. They're doing pretty good.
Something's going well.
Something's going well. Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah, and there's this. It's a really tight community. So regardless of what you heard here today, I'll always tell you when I don't like something in 14, despite being a fanboy. But I'd say try it yourself. Shadowbringers early access starts Friday. Going to be a million streams for it to watch, whether it be spoiler or spoiler free. It's if you're into MMOs, what do you got to lose? You'll pay a one-time price. If you don't like it in the first 30 days, you'll know. And then it'll be like any other game you purchased and you liked it or you didn't like it. And you don't have to think about any of this other stuff.
Sure.
So I just hope if you like Final Fantasy that you'll only give it a shot, because I think it can be a good time.
You're going to be basically covering it like 100% from the moment you can for release onward, right?
Yes. So what I do, and I like to give credit to people who inspire me with the idea. Towley, when he did a World of Warcraft release, him and D. Carter, they do a 24/7 program where they swap off. I'm going to be doing something similar. We did it for Stormblood, where for the first week, the channel will be live 24 hours, barring technical difficulties, and we'll be covering everything pretty much. And then on YouTube is all guides and updates and discussions. And then 2 weeks after is the normal mode raid. And then another 2 weeks later is Savage mode raid, which of course we'll be covering on the channel as well. So yeah, it's there's nothing else in my life for the next 4 weeks at minimum, probably 5, probably 6.
Let's hope let's hope those servers stay up. Let's hope they work. That's all.
MMO releases are the best. Just hearing you say all that stuff, I don't even play, and I'm excited for you. Those are like the most magical times in gaming is when an MMO comes out with new content that you're fully invested in.
It really is.
Oh, I miss it.
Yep.
The only MMO launch I think that ever went really well was Rift. Thinking back, when you say MMO launches,
did Rift
go? It went better than most.
Rift had some issues.
Went better than most.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah. I mean,
it could have
had
been
some pretty good expansions.
Could have been worse. Yeah, I think Legion went really well.
It did. Yeah.
Legion went really well.
The one prior to that was awful because it was kind of the same issue that Final Fantasy 14 had with Stormblood, where no one could get their garrison to spawn like an hour into the main story, and so it was just a massive
let
clusterfuck.
Nothing like that happen.
Yeah,
please. We even have like separate instances, like 3 instances of one zone to try and like help with congestion on top of the queues, on top of all the other stuff.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yes,
just know it will never be as bad as Anarchy Online, and just take a little bit of comfort there.
Yeah. God, I haven't thought about Anarchy Online. We should just go down. We should just have an episode where we talk about old MMOs. Just like old
Dude,
if you need a Final Fantasy 11 aficionado,
yeah. Oh yeah, I played a shit ton of 11.
We'd have to make that show 5 to 6 hours, JP.
We would.
No joke.
A 2 or 3 parter. And Zeke could just be the question guy because he didn't jump into any of that shit.
I did WoW.
You did WoW? Okay.
Yeah, I did WoW for like a better part of 2 years. Like,
well, it was like the Call of Duty of MMO.
One and only game.
You know, like
for sure. No, it was burning like End of Burning Crusades, Wrath of the Lich King, like fun times.
Yeah, it's still good. Yeah. I mean, it's not that the game's I don't want that to be a disparaging mark towards World of Warcraft.
You may not have wanted it, but that's what it is.
It might be. It might be. Anyways, Mr. Happy, do some shout outs. Where can people check all your stuff out that's happening on Friday? Let the people know.
You can find me on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, all Mr. Happy 1227. YouTube, oddly enough, I was one of those people who made a really dumb name when I was younger, and I'm stuck with it. So Xehanort 1227 on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hold on. Sorry. Me and Code lost it at that. One more time for the people out there.
Xehanort 1227.
Okay.
Listen, I got
Xehanort.
an
How do you
email
spell? Can we get a
with
Xehanort
an
spelling here? How would you?
XEHANORT. Listen, I was like an email I got in 2009. They were like, "Hey, you can change the name to whatever you want." I made like Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix videos. I was like, Xehanort. I'll just change it later. No, you can't do that.
No,
by the way,
no,
can't change it later.
We'll never forget it. That's all I'm saying. That's a good name. You know, it's great.
Nope,
it's great.
It's not.
Can I just tell you that moving forward?
Yeah, we're just gonna call him Xehanort from now on.
Do I need to be like the contacts?
You might have to get some.
Contacts.
Yeah, you need some yellow contacts for sure. That's good.
For those people in the know, there was a debate early on in the days of before Twitch was actually Twitch.
Yeah.
Between the name of what Twitch was going to become.
Oh, right.
And the name was between two things. It was Twitch or Zarth.
Zarth TV.
Yeah, that was from the first TwitchCon, yeah?
Was it Zarth or Xanth?
XARTH. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Zarth.
That's right.
I think they made the right choice.
No, if it was named Zarth,
do you think?
Yeah, could you imagine if it was Zarth TV?
We wouldn't be here.
We probably wouldn't be here. This show wouldn't be. Yeah.
No, and I still see people like employees when I'm like do like host gigs and stuff like that. Some of the like employees on their like laptops, I catch a view. They have like
the
Zarth header and logo and shit.
Yeah, there's
ZarthCon.
ZarthCon.
Zarth. Oh man, can we get a ZarthCon? That sounds so much cooler than TwitchCon. They need to just call it ZarthCon one year.
Zarth plays Pokemon.
I know someone at Twitch. I'll see what we can do. I'll see if we can get it renamed.
Is there a Twitch? Is anyone on Twitch named Zarth? There has to be.
Oh, I don't know.
There has to be a streamer. Twitch.tv/Zarth.
Hold on. Let's go.
Sounds like a Warframe.
TV.
Nope. I don't think there is. Is there? I'm looking at the social blade for it. Oh yeah, there is. Yeah, Zarth. They have 5 followers and 492 channel views.
Oh, that's
which, funny enough, is exactly how the actual Zarth would be if they kept the name right.
Yeah, it's just it's just one guy who's sitting there talking like, could have been Zarth, man.
I gotta get Zarth 1227 now.
Like, okay, look.
Oh wait, apparently it's going up right now.
Oh God,
yeah,
we're gonna make.
Look at that.
Jesus.
Looking back on it now, and saying like, oh, you made the right choice, but thinking about it, going like, which doesn't sound right either. Like going back and forth about like the difference between like, what name should we pick for this website that we're going to make, and hopefully it'll blow up. Like we want something that stands out, but Twitch sounds like, you know, this or that or the other thing. But looking back on it, it's like, do we call the rabbit Bugs Bunny or Ephraim? You know, the fucking stupid rabbit. Like,
dude, naming things is naming things. Like, if you've ever played an MMO, first naming your character is probably the most relatable thing because it's always difficult. Unless you have like a moniker that you use to begin with, it's always a fucking pain in the ass. So,
dude, if I could go back, I could go all the way back when and just pick a name without an underscore. Like,
it's true.
What kind of a life would I be living right now?
Character.
Yeah.
Well, sure, but like underscore is such a fucking lame thing to have to type in the middle of a name.
Yeah.
It's like I know where all these letters are. Underscore. Where the fuck is even that on a keyboard?
It just looks like a regular dash. In fact, the underscore is over the dash.
Yeah, it owns that dash. Well, depending on the keyboard, my underscore is below the dash, so it just depends on your perspective. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's got really off the rails.
It's drop frames. That's what happens every week. That's kind of the show's
kind of our MO.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Actually, let me ask the guest. If you could go back, would you? And like you know what you know. Excuse me. You're transported back to your old self, and you say like, You have all this knowledge about your name. Like, would you change your name and what would it be?
Wouldn't be fucking Xehanort 1227. I can promise you that.
I meant Mr. Happy. Are you cool with Mr.
Oh.
Happy 1227?
No, I'd keep that at the very least.
Yeah.
You would, okay. You wouldn't change a thing about your name.
No, I'd keep the
Okay.
1227 still because I like people thinking it was me like not getting leaked.
Right.
And then
yeah,
I have to
that's what-
explain to them it was a birthday. Like, oh, you were born in 1227. I'm like, that's not at all what I
Yeah.
meant.
It's like you hit enter and then realize that your finger was over one key or something. And that's the
Yeah.
story. But no, it's your
Yeah.
birthday.
I'd keep it. It's my birthday. It's special to me.
Yeah.
It sucks when people have to say the whole thing and I hear it and I go, it's part of who I am.
Yeah.
I would have fought for Zeke, like all across all platforms.
Yeah.
Just ZEKE. I would have fought for Zeke on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. Like I would have tried to get all of them to line up. Now it's a little bit too late, but
I knew when I started out that it was impossible to get /JP on anything. So I was like, all right, let's add something stupid in front of it. So
yeah.
you could have probably gone
I was
/Ken.
cursing it for letters together and got lucky.
Yeah.
To realize, I think I was the only cuss I dropped the whole show, and I was like, "Oh wait, is this?" Oh,
No, it's more impactful. It's more impactful.
okay.
Yeah, it's good.
I normally don't as a guest because I don't know what the show rules are usually. But then I
Oh,
was like,
it's
I could've
fine.
swore I'm not the first person.
Yeah, it's fine. We've cursed a lot.
Yeah.
Zeke's on the show. I mean,
Pretty sure it's happened already. This show.
yeah, exactly. All right, sir. Good luck with everything on Friday. I hope the servers stay up. I hope that, knock on some fucking wood, I hope things go smoothly for yourself as well as Square and those servers. We'll
Fingers
see.
crossed. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it a lot.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We will definitely have
A lot
you
of
back
fun, man.
in the future. We're going to take a quick break. Shuffle Mr. Happy out of here. Come back, talk about some subscriber-only streams as well as what we've been playing and some more news and then Crazy Dan's questions. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more. See you then.